What is going on, everybody? And I'm here today to celebrate the career of one of my most favorite wrestlers of all time, Macho Man Randy Savage, in honor of him finally going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I originally wanted to do a two-part series to this, one being this video and the other video being talking about my favorite Macho Man Randy Savage match and actually including the match. Unfortunately, YouTube and WWE decided to go after me for that, which I still thought my video was under fair use because I added my own commentary to the video. Even though I had the match in the video, I added my own commentary to the video. I figured it fell under fair use, but apparently it doesn't, so that's that. But I will link the match in the description because I uploaded it to my Facebook. So if you would like to check out that match, it's my favorite Macho Man match of all time, so enjoy if you check it out. But I also wanted to give you guys a little perspective of when I started, my first thoughts of Macho Man when I first started wrestling, and just to go from there. So, I started watching wrestling in 1993. I started watching WWE. And my first sighting of Macho Man was that he was a commentator. Around that time is when his WWE was starting to dwindle down a little bit, and he was a color commentator. And his flashy outfits, his raspy voice, and all that really caught my attention. He was really cool. And then that was also around the time he started the Slim Jim commercials, which were, to this day, they are hilarious. No one's done as good of a Slim Jim commercial as Macho Man, but he would also wrestle occasionally, and when he wrestled occasionally back then, it was a big deal. And I thought it was awesome when he would wrestle because, in my mind, it was a commentator wrestling, which back then really didn't happen often. But see, I knew nothing about his past history and his past career. Once I eventually learned of all of that, he instantly became one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I mean, his feud with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, his feud with Hulk Hogan, when he teamed with Hulk Hogan as the Mega Powers before that feud, his feud with Jake the Snake Roberts, his feud with Ric Flair. I could go on all the amazing feuds and matches he had before he was relegated to the announce table. But then one day, late 1994 on a Monday Night Raw, I was watching, and then Vince McMahon came on and announced that Macho Man could not agree to a new contract, and he was gone. And I didn't understand any of that as a kid. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And then he never appeared in WWE again after that. Little did I know that Vince was actually talking about his actual contract. But see, once again, I was a kid, I didn't understand any of that. And I didn't see Macho Man again for a very long time. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering, well, he had a whole career in WCW. Why aren't you mentioning that? Well, see, I didn't really follow WCW back then. I was a staunch WWE guy. Or WWF if you want to be real old school about it. Because some people can't differentiate the two names. And I never really followed WCW. I started following WCW in the late 90s. That around the time WCW was starting to dwindle a little bit. But then once I eventually, later in life, got a hold of early WCW events through tape and DVD, I learned of Macho Man's great early WCW matches. Once again, he had some great matches with Ric Flair. Then he had his great feud with Diamond Dallas Page. So, I would always hope Macho Man would come back to the WWE. And then, once I eventually saw him in WCW, he looked way different than what I remember. First off, it's obvious, and I hate to say this because he's one of my favorites, it's obvious he took steroids because he was really, really buffed up in the late 90s. It's like someone took an air hose and stuck it in his mouth and then turned it on. And he was getting older. He wasn't as quick as he used to be. His top rope elbow didn't look as flashy. It just was not the same. It was not the same. And then, eventually, WWE bought WCW in 2001. And then around that time, I was hoping, you know what, maybe Macho Man will come back now. Maybe all these old WCW guys like Macho, Hogan, Hall and Nash, Goldberg and all Sting and all these WCW guys would appear on WWE programming, and they would battle with the WWE guys, and it'd be like a dream come true. It was a great time to be a fan in early 2001 when all that stuff was swirling in wrestling fans' minds. And unfortunately, that never happened. But see, the difference here is that eventually Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg, and now Sting have all eventually come back to WWE. But Macho Man never did. Macho Man never did. And I always wondered, growing up, why he never came back. And it almost seemed like he was blacklisted. Now, there's that stupid rumor that he slept with an underage Stephanie McMahon when she was 14 years old, and that's why Vince blacklisted him. That's a stupid goddamn rumor, because if that actually happened, then Vince would have had him arrested, because that's against the law. So, anyone who believes that, I don't really know what to say to you, because that's bullshit. Personally, now that I'm an adult now and I can look back at these things, I think he was blacklisted because he left WWE during WWE's dire period. 94, 95, 96, those were WWE's really dangerous years where they were not doing good business, and Macho Man basically left during that, when he was probably one of Vince's few top stars that he had left. And not only did he leave, he, according to people like Bret Hart and others around that time, basically left in the middle of the night, so to speak, and didn't even give Vince a chance to make a counteroffer. Now, I've heard both sides. Apparently, according to Macho Man's brother, Macho Man still wanted to be a wrestler. He didn't feel like his career was finished. He didn't want to be relegated to the commentary table and not wrestle. He still felt he could contribute in the ring, and Vince obviously didn't agree with that, so Macho Man left to go to WCW, who obviously paid him to wrestle. And I can understand that, because during Macho Man's early WCW years, he could still go. So I definitely think he still could have contributed in the WWE in 94, 95, and all that. But at the same time, I can also understand how Vince wanted to go more towards a newer generation. And so, personally, I would have had Macho wrestle occasionally, but still be an announcer, because he was still great on the commentary table. Last time I saw Macho Man after the whole WCW was bought was in the first Spider-Man movie. He was Bonesaw McGraw, and he wrestled Tobey Maguire in that cage. And that's an awesome scene, if any of you have seen that movie. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, Macho Man. Wow, I haven't seen him in a long time. He looks awesome. Maybe he can come back to WWE. Maybe not to wrestle because he's getting older now, but maybe he can at least cut promos, and then maybe he can eventually go into the Hall of Fame. I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. Those were my thoughts. And it never happened. And several years passed, and he eventually got a DVD release in 2009. And when that happened, I thought, maybe he's finally going in now. Never happened. Then, early 2011, there was a video game called WWE All-Stars, which is a fun video game, by the way. And then Macho Man was in the commercial for it. And I thought, okay, maybe him and WWE reconciled. And maybe he'll finally go into the Hall of Fame now. Maybe they're finally on good terms. Never happened. Never happened. And then, unfortunately, later that year, May 2011, which was a pretty tough time in my life, and this really didn't help matters, Macho Man unfortunately died in an automobile accident. That pretty much devastated me. Not just because I felt bad for his family and friends, and not because I just lost someone who's entertained me for so many years, but because he really never got his just due. He never got in the Hall of Fame. He never got his big DVD release. He did get one, but it was just a collection of his matches. It wasn't a celebration of his career, which is what he needs and what he deserved. He eventually got that last year, but once again, he's already passed on. And unfortunately, he was not alive to see that. So I'm happy he's finally going to the Hall of Fame this year, which is actually tonight, by the way. I can't wait for that to happen. Oh, man. It seems like this is like a long, winding road that has finally reached its end. So, yeah, Macho Man was one of the greatest. One of the greatest. So many great matches, so many great feuds, so many great memories. And I'm finally happy he's going into the Hall of Fame. So, for any of you who might have any Macho Man memories, by chance, even if you don't watch wrestling anymore, please list them down below. I would love to hear about them. Or if you have favorite matches and moments, I would love to hear those as well. Please let me know what you think. And before I sign off, I have to do this one thing. So, here we go. Oh, yeah. That probably sounded really terrible, but I had to do one. I had to do one for Macho. So, that's about it. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will see you all later. Have a good one.